and he will be talking about the mapping global security threats and the global security architecture. Please, let's give him a round of applause once again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Means international police. Yes, I'm in charge of the Interpol systems for almost 3 decades right now. 196 member nations with almost 19 strong databases that are used to solve crime around the world. Well, you know that with almost 30 years experience in this area, without sounding immodest, I'm in the front row seat of the security arrangement when it comes to domestic and global security apparatus. But I will focus more on global security. At the end of the First World War, around 11th November 1918, that was when the global problem of security commenced after the First World War. Europe, more importantly, was in turmoil, extreme turmoil, because after the war, there was penury, there was the enabling environment for criminals to strive. In fact, we were told that given that Europe was very small then, there were movement of criminals from one point to another. Criminals moved from Germany to England and from maybe Luxembourg to other parts of Europe. The question was, how do you now pick up a criminal who moves from Germany to England, where Germany has its own laws and England has its own laws? Germany has its own law enforcement agencies. England, its own law enforcement agencies. You see that criminals were having a field day. And you know criminals are very fluid, they are very mobile. They can move from one point to another. So there became the need for an international world order. A criminal from Germany going to England, who and how can his activity be curtailed? In that process, on September 1923 in Vienna, the world gathered and said, listen, we have to do something different here. We have to have a world security body where the world will not have one single security arrangement, security apparatus. If you commit a crime in Germany and move to England, we'll follow you. Because the German police cannot go there. So that was how the birth of Interpol came to be, international police. One body, international body, whose job it is to, in any part of the world, to pick up criminals and make sure they are brought to book. So you see, Interpol is an international security framework that is specifically designed to close the gaps and the difficulties of trans-border crime. It is an international police organization without borders, and currently has 100 96 member nations, primarily aimed at fighting the insecurity and security challenges all over the world. I'll be doing more of interaction, so at any given point, you have any point to raise, please tell me. I'll stop and listen to you. It will be more of an interaction. And if at any point you think I'm talking nonsense, please tell me. The world has been engulfed sizably with enormous crime and criminality. That is why Interpol decided to create what we call the crime fighting enablers. Interpol created the crime fighting enablers. In fact, for every nation, every member nation have access to 19 databases. 19 databases. These 19 databases are the tools that are used to fight transnational crime. I will look at a few of these databases and you can see how they work, how effective they work. The first database is called Stolen and Lost Travel Documents Database. Travel documents are three: passport, ticket, and visa. These are the travel documents we have. If you lose any of them and you report to law enforcement, it is put in the database so that nobody can use it. Anybody in any of the 196 member nations cannot use it. Once it is flagged, we call it flag. Once it is flagged, we'll make sure you cannot use it. We also have the one we call the work of art. It is not very popular here. It is only popular in Europe and America because that's where works of art are appreciated. We don't appreciate works of art here that much. And it is very surprising to know the countries where these works of art majorly were taken from. Afghanistan, Syria, were the places, and Iran and Iraq. These were the places where most of the works of art were taken. So these are the places where the works of art are taken. And then the question is, where in the world were these works of art taken to? Who are the culprits? Who are the criminals? I don't know if anybody knows Europe and America. These are the two criminals that are primarily taking this work of art. We have another one we call International Child Sexual Exploration Images. These are pedophiles, child molesters. All child molesters in the world, we have a database for them. In fact, some countries, the Scandinavian countries, if you want to go there, they will refuse you entry. And if for some reason it becomes very, very important that you have to be there, you'll be restricted to some area where children are. This is what happens. And it is also important to know the greatest pedophiles in the world. I don't know if anybody does know. Australians. And the biggest pedophile. We have over 50,000 cases every month. 50,000 cases a month. Well, one can say that because we have a problem of reporting in Africa. We have a problem of reporting in Africa. In fact, the records we have shows that about 25% of reportage is what we have in Africa. So we have a whopping 75 unreported cases in Africa. So one can look at the integrity of this record and say, because Europe is reporting, therefore one can say this is where we have it. The next one, which is the fourth one, is called the DNA fingerprinting. Let me give you DNA fingerprinting. We have a record of all DNA fingerprints of criminals on our database, Interpol database. Let me tell you how we obtain this database, the fingerprints and the DNAs. If there's a scene of crime and a law enforcement officer is investigating a scene of crime and obtains fingerprints or maybe DNA, this DNA can come from the fluid of the body or also from hairs. They all be from saliva, which is also a body fluid. But there is no name attached to it. What we do is that we'll put the fingerprints in our database and we'll put the DNA in another database, just in case. You will see that most times when you want to apply for visa in some countries like the United States of America and some European countries, they'll ask for your fingerprint. Most of the time, because they have access to the Interpol database, they want to match and see if this man who is applying is the one we are looking for. You can change your name, but you cannot change your fingerprint. But there's another one, a very interesting one, that we have always looked at. It has taken the center stage in Interpol activities, especially as it affects our black brothers in America. We call it the I familia. The I familia DNA fingerprinting. What it means is that it will link you up to your family anywhere in the world. It's called the I familia. Interpol have invested so much in this area because most of our black brothers and sisters in America are wanting to find out where they are from. I'm happy to tell you that most of them are Igbos and most of them are Nigerians. But unfortunately, I was disappointed when our sister Oprah Winfrey says he's from South Africa from his DNA fingerprinting. But we have some other ones like Jex. Jex is an Igbo man. He found out his I familiar systems and he was happy to be associated with it. So it will link you up directly to where you belong. Let me tell you why Interpol decided to take this. In a war situation, you find out that some bodies can be recovered and they may have been deteriorated to a point where it is difficult to identify. If they have no identity with them, it becomes a problem. But it is the duty of every government to give those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice in scenes of war, to honor them by making sure their bodies get home. So Interpol plays a very important role in this area, making sure that everybody or anybody who, even if they find as little as your tooth, one tooth, it can be used to create an unfamiliar situation and make sure that your DNA is tied up to your family. And it can also be tied up to your great-grandfather. It has a chronology of family relatives that you can be tied up to. But there are some other things that came up in the course of using the I familia and also the DNA in America. It put so many families into problem. It was certainly identified, especially in the black community, that a chunk of those families, their fathers were not the biological origins of their children. Another one that was interesting too was it also identified in some cases that neither the father nor the mother owned that child. It had to do with what was identified by a way of serious investigation as to child swapping that happened in so many hospitals, especially in the 70s and the 80s in America. There were serious cases of child swapping that created serious problems. But this I familia situation solved a chunk of the problems. Another, one of the interesting database is the firearm index database. Any firearm that is missing today, Interpol has a capacity to identify where this firearm is manufactured, who the major distributors are. In some cases, they can identify who the last person was sold to. That was how we were able to know the chunk of the light arms we have in the country today, where they are coming from. From what was collected from the stockpile of this in Sambisa forests that was being used by Boko Haram and also other bandits. It was clear that over 87% of the firearms that were found in the arms of the bandits came from Libya. When Libya failed, the arms and ammunition in Libya, in fact, the Libyan army was looted. You can see the proximity of Libya to Nigeria. And also you can see the capacity of Nigerians to buy arms. And also the profitability of using illegal arms in Nigeria. Our brother, Uchoga, made a very important comment here that I registered here. He said it was time for action. The hour demands for action. Let us keep away rhetorics and get involved in making sure that we provide security for our nation. Because without security, the story will be a very long one. Let me tell you why I say this. Over the past 8 years before this government took over, most of us in the security sector decided not to get involved with the government. Because the government was not a listening government. They were not listening to us. The Interpol regional head office moved from Nigeria to Cote d'Ivoire. ECOWAS is wanting to move from Nigeria because there's no security. And the question we keep asking is, what are they doing that we are not capable of doing? Today, the issue of kidnapping has remained a major disturbing factor within our security network and setups. Kidnapping. They have tried me several times. God help me. I didn't know I was a target. I thought that people like have money, like Uchoga and the rest of them, should be told they should be chasing. But the question is, Nigeria with all our resources, intellectual resources, material resources, Ghana can effectively take care of its security more than Nigeria. Cote d'Ivoire, little countries. Let me give you an information that will stop you. When you have a situation of a kidnap situation, the means of communication is the cellular phone. That's the means of communication where ransom is required. Because there are so many areas where ransom is not required. So many people have been killed, kidnapped for various reasons, business problems, family matters. From our investigation, it's not just every kidnap that is for ransom. Our records indicate that most of a chunk of kidnapping is essentially vengeance, retaliation. That's what we have found out. So where one is kidnapped, they communicate through cell phones. The technology that we have existing today for tracking of such communications is so advanced. It is advanced to the extent that even when the telephone is switched off, there are still emissions of signals that can be detected. That's what the technology shows. But it is very disturbing to tell you. I say it with all sense of responsibility, but I must tell you that the tracking system we have today, government finds it difficult to pay for licensing. Ordinary licensing. And the tracking system we have was donated by United Nations. So there's difficulty in tracking. And also disturbing Mazistan is the fact that there is what they call insider trading. There's complicity of our law enforcement in this process. At very high levels, at command levels, there is complicity. If the enemy is from within, it's very difficult to run. Extremely difficult. That is why we kept begging. I have had the privilege of serving 3 times on the Police Welfare Reforms Committee. The 4th time I was nominated, I refused to serve. I refused to serve because our government is not listening. If you don't pay a livable wage, you should not expect any patriotism from that citizen. We must have to pay livable wages. Let us also look at some of other information we have on the databases that are used. We have the stolen vehicle database. Any vehicle that is stolen in any of the 196 countries of the world is put in the database. I do not know if some of us know the worst criminals in stolen vehicles in the world. Can anybody tell us? Who are those who steal vehicles so massively? New Zealand. New Zealand. The greatest stealers of vehicles. New Zealand. It is frightening the amount of vehicles that are being stolen in New Zealand. Also, we have a very important database that is called stolen vessels and stolen cargo. Cargoes and vessels are stolen. You see vessels in ship. We have almost 1,800 stolen ships in the nation. Wherever this database is working, the ships don't go there. They will discharge in the high sea with badges. We have stolen vessels, stolen cargo. When containers come in, you think all containers are coming right. Some of them are stolen. Oh, we also have a very important one we call the active terrorist fighters. We have active terrorist fighters in the database. And most of these active terrorist fighters are from Afghanistan or some other countries. The major organized crime network in the world comes from Colombia, Mexico, and also from Nigeria. We are, of course, we are in organized crime network. So many of Nigerians, but we are not up there like Colombia and Mexico, but we are there. First five. We have dialogue and what we call ABCTD. These are the systems that are used to fight cybercrime. Cybercrime is another thing today. If you look at the dashboard, I thought I had asked them to show me the dashboard. They could not. If you look at the dashboard, you see where cyber criminals are operating from. Do you know the best or the biggest country in cybercrime? The biggest country in cybercrime? Russia. United States of America. USA. We have at least 25 million attacks every day from America. Not just exploits, no, but attacks. These are the mappings we have for the crimes we have around the world. And these are the solutions provided by Interpol for solving these problems. But let me give you the bad story. The sad story is that these 19 databases of Interpol are today not working in Nigeria.
Not one.
Not one.
Why?
Not because the systems have not been installed. I'm in charge of the systems. The systems have been fully installed. But we have problems associated with the agencies, 18 government agencies that ought to hook on to them at no cost. At no cost to them. Immigration, you are issuing visas to foreigners coming into your country, you don't know who they are. You are issuing passports to Nigerians, you don't know how many names they have. It's unfortunate. The customs vehicles are coming into the country, we don't know if they are stolen vehicles. In fact, Nigeria has been a heaven for stolen vehicles around the world. Like our brother said, it is time for action. It is not time for too much talk. I hope that this government will be a listening government, and if they're a listening government, God will help us to have a better security system in the country. Thanks for listening.